Welcome back to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. All right, we've got Greg Lewin Capital Investments on the show right now. Greg, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Give our audience some background on yourself, and let's get into the trust issue that we're going to talk about.
Sure. Probably the background that's more relevant to the show is my investment background, which I started off in a kind of a peculiar place. Grew up in a very racially divided town in late 60s and early 70s. It was a pretty wild place to grow up, and made my way to Wall Street in the very early 80s. So just sort of when the bull market started getting going, I was partner at a bunch of different firms, eventually managed institutional capital for 20 to 30 years, had a very big background in the charitable world, which I spent an awful lot of time with. And after a while, it was a strange feeling. You're sort of at the peak of your career. Things are going well. Family life is great. You feel kind of empty. Something doesn't really click. And so I spent a number of years looking back, trying to figure out the roots of what was making me feel the way I did. And one of the things you do is you examine the important decisions of your life. And when I did, there was a theme that came out every single time. It was all matters of trust. It wasn't about research. It wasn't about intellect. It wasn't about this, that, or the other thing. It was about trust. And as I started studying the subject more, I realized that all of decision-making, from life to investments to business, you name it, to telling a woman I love you for the first time, these are all matters of trust. And when I started researching the subject, I realized how little was written on it. It's usually, I don't know what you want to call it, a dangling participle. Trust in God, trust in the president, trust in the economy. And then what do? You talk about the president, the economy, and God. It's really not about trust, when trust is really the big subject, because that's how we decide as human beings.
Okay, since you did so much research and everybody kind of thinks, oh, well, why do you need to explain that? Let's find out what the research brought out. Break it out. Break down this research you found out about trust that's so little is written on.
Okay, let's get to a basic idea.
Yeah.
So if you looked up trust in the dictionary, it would basically say confidence. Confidence in someone, confidence in something. And that doesn't even begin to get to the essence of what trust is. The definition is absolutely incomplete. Because if you think about it, trust is all about risk-taking. That's what life is about, right? Life is about risk-taking, right?
Yeah.
What is opportunity? What is common about both opportunity and threat? They're all about uncertainty, levels of uncertainty, but they're all about uncertainty. And so it's all about risk-taking. And so if I have confidence in you, I don't know, you're an electrician, and I think you're a terrific electrician. If I don't hire you, I'm not really expressing any trust in you. I might be confident, but it's a meaningless statement. It might be a mere flattery. Hiring you to do something that means something to me, to fixing something important in my house, that's where trust begins. So trust, intrinsic to trust, you need to take a risk. Because if you know the answer, there is no need for any risk. There is no trust that's necessary.
Greg,
trust is also, by definition, because it's associated with risk, it's all about the future. It's not about the past, because there is no risk in the past.
Got it.
Greg,
Ed's got a question.
I'm Ed Baxter of
Yeah.
Bison Creek Capital, and you just actually lit my hair on fire for just a second when you talked about trust.
I didn't
Obviously,
hear anything if I was supposed to.
Oh, it was great. It was great. But what I was seeing was that having kind of
I'm
walked.
not hearing any words if I'm supposed to be hearing something.
Yeah, you're supposed to be hearing Ed. Let's see.
Oh, I don't.
Okay. Go ahead, Ed. Try it again.
Well, can you hear me now?
Nope, I guess not.
I'm sorry.
So let's try this again. I'm going to give Ed my microphone.
Okay.
Well, what I was saying was, I go back to B.B. King, and part of the trading thing, the thrill just kind of goes away after a while. You don't feel like you have that big of a need for it. And trust is the one thing that makes financial markets work. So that's what I thought about when you were saying that, is that you don't have, whenever financial markets go into seizure, it's because people have lost trust in the system and lost trust in each other. And as a former trader, that's something that I always thought about. Who's on the other side of that trading? Did I really trust him? So I appreciate the fact that you've actually brought that up and made it an issue here.
Right. Yeah, no, trust is, there is no density to life without trust. You can't love somebody without trust. You can't buy a stock without having trust in the people that are running that business, that you'll share in the gains with them, even if it's a wonderful company. If you can't trust management, there's no way of you executing an investment strategy. Trust is the essence of what we're talking about, and there is a specific biology and psychology to trust, which is very interesting.
Well, I had the pleasure of going to a speaking engagement last week, and they were talking about intuition, how to use intuition to trust your intuition. And it seems to me that we're almost getting down to the point of where that's really what you're talking about, is being able to use your intuition to guide you to the proper decision to trust or not trust. Am I on point here with this?
You are on point. I'll give it a little bit more context if it helps. So you think about buying a stock. We'll keep it in financial terms because I think that's the essence of what this program is. So when you do all the research, you do all your study, whatever it is for your particular way of investing in a stock, that doesn't mean you necessarily buy the stock, right?
Right.
Because you've done the research. There is something magical that turns over in you that actually makes you pull the trigger. And what is that? Now, going back to what you said, there is a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of knowledge that's conscious, right? We do research and we come to a conscious conclusion. And there's a lot of knowledge that's, we'll call it preconscious. We can call it gut feelings. We can call it instincts. We could call it habits. We could call it prejudices. We can call it biases, all kinds of things. And even though some of those words have positive and negative connotations, they're really neither. They're just predispositions for how we behave because of where we grew up and how we grew up and the nature of the time we grew up and all kinds of things. And that information is really, really important to, as you said, pulling a trigger. It's not just about what you know. It's also about what you feel, because what you feel is really, really informed by a lot of thoughtful time and process.
Greg, we're going to have to end it on that note. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate this time.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Greg Lewin, Lewin Capital Investments. All right. Thank you all for listening, tuning in, to, whether you're here in the United States or in New Delhi. We really appreciate the cards, the letters, and the feedback. Listen to CEO Money with Michael Yorba and Ed Baxter, segment brought to you by Tycon Partners.